Oh, I'm Chip. He's Griff. We were sitting here trying to pronounce the tight end's name.
Albert Okuebunam.
Okue Bunam, number 81, otherwise referred to as Albert by Kirby Smart. Like I said, he's Griff. I'm Chip. This is the Chip and Griff show. Starting at 1 o'clock today. We're going to try to get these going at 1:30. 12:30. For today, we had to go at 1. It's been a busy week already. It's just Tuesday. I know it's been a busy week for Georgia, getting ready for Drew Lock and this offense. I just got through writing about it, and between citing his statistics, citing the draft analyst, and listening to Kirby Smart's comments on him and J.R. Reed and all the other Georgia players, you would think Georgia has no shot in this game whatsoever playing Drew Lock and Missouri at home. I know that's not the case. I think it certainly helps who they've played so far, but this is a huge matchup in this game. Georgia's secondary and defense in general against Missouri's offense. Let's start with that matchup. Missouri, offense versus Georgia defense. What's your thoughts on that, Griff?
Well, my first thought kind of skips to somewhere else, and the surprising statistic that Georgia's last in the country in number of sacks. They've gotten 1 sack through 3 games, and let's face it, Chip, they haven't played great opponents in Austin Peay and Middle Tennessee, and South Carolina's decent.
What was the other stat you cited? You cited
tackles for loss.
And tackles for loss, and their opponents have more
tackles for loss against Georgia
than Georgia has against its opponents.
Yeah, and at some point, and here's the thing. To be fair, these teams that are playing Georgia aren't stupid. They get rid of the ball quickly.
Right.
They're not going to sit back there and say, come and get me.
Yeah, Kirby's used that a lot.
But at the same time, what it tells you is that Georgia's not able to generate a pass rush without blitzing. They don't got a guy that's just going to overwhelm the guy in front of them and blow through there. I mean, don't you think offenses are playing Alabama the same way?
Yeah.
I mean, they're not holding the ball against them either, but they're finding a way. And on tackles for loss, that's just hitting guys in the backfield. And Georgia's not doing that. Now, I don't know how much that has to do with Georgia's strategy, but at the end of the day, I just don't think you can completely discount that statistic. So I start there because, to me, the best defense against a good quarterback is a good pass rush and disrupting him and not enabling him to set up and have the time to throw. Because if you give good quarterbacks time to throw, they're going to find receivers. You can only ask those guys in the secondary to cover for so long. Now, something I thought Kirby said that was interesting was he said, well, we don't have any secrets. Everything we do is pretty...
Well, it was answer to your question. Yeah. Are you holding back on your blitz schemes and
your blitz package because you really haven't had to blitz? If a guy tells you he doesn't get any, especially a defensive coach, listen, they got stuff that Missouri hasn't seen this year. Yeah. There's things. Georgia's going to do some things to make Drew Lock uncomfortable. You can bet on that, Chip.
Andre Harris here is saying no sacks. Finally got your comments up here.
1 sack in 3 games.
Yeah, 1 sack in 3 games, which you got an average of 0.33 sacks per game. How many tackles for losses? It's just a few.
11. 11, and opponents have 13.
Yeah, and so, no matter how you put it, you got to get more pressure on the passer.
Yeah, they didn't have any sacks. I think what you said, they didn't have any sacks against Middle Tennessee.
Oh, yeah, that's what we were saying.
They had one sack. The only sack came from DeAndre Walker. Trying to remember the game. Was that at South Carolina, maybe?
Yeah.
But, 1 sack through 3 games. That's not good. That's 128 out of 128. Now, what Kirby said was he was more concerned with, I believe, yards per completion. Georgia's tops in the SEC in that, and I believe tops in the country.
Yeah.
And the other statistic is points allowed per game. And I think Georgia's scoring defense is ranked for second. So, look, we're not sitting here trying to tell you that Georgia doesn't have a good defense. I understand some fans are going to be sensitive, and whenever we point out Georgia's got a flaw, they're going to get defensive. We're just saying the fact that Georgia's only got 1 sack through 3 games and has fewer tackles for loss than the opponent, that tells you that Georgia's defensive front is suspect.
Yeah.
And in a game like this, when you play a quarterback, and Drew Lock will probably throw it between 40 and 60 times, if you're not getting a pass rush, that can make for a long afternoon. I've got to believe, again, that Kirby's got a plan, that Georgia's going to do some blitzing. But what's alarming to me is that Georgia has not been able to generate a pass rush without blitzing.
Without the blitzing.
And they're not dominating the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and I think that comes back to something we touched on in the preseason is John Atkins being in the NFL now. I think he got cut late by the New England Patriots, but I'm sure he landed somewhere. But John Atkins last year commanded a double team at the nose guard position every week. So right away, you got to commit 2 linemen to him. You're getting one-on-one blocking at least, 2 or 3 of the other positions. Georgia's probably not getting a whole lot of that right now.
Well, we were talking about it yesterday, Chip. Is Julian Rochester been a disappointment? Maybe it's too early to say that, but has he dominated? Not yet. We haven't seen it yet. And, Georgia's defensive front, I think at this stage of the season, through 3 games, it's a long season. There's time to get better. But right now, I would say that the defensive front would be my biggest area of concern on the defense.
I agree with you on that, and the offensive line. We'll get to the offensive side in a minute, but hasn't been as dominant as you would like, considering the competition.
I got a bigger concern. We'll get to that later.
All right, real quick, let's get to some of you. So part of this, we want to be interactive. We want to talk to you. Mike Mizell is cutting right to the chase here. He wants to know, do y'all think now that LSU may be some trouble for us? Hey, first, I think Missouri could be some trouble. So let's get past that first. And
I think Vanderbilt could be. Vanderbilt almost beat Notre Dame.
That's right. But, yeah, my opinion on LSU has changed based on how they played early. What about you?
Not really.
No?
I'm more disappointed with Auburn.
Are you really?
I am. Maybe Auburn's not the team I thought they were. I know that, in the preseason there was some talk that maybe their offensive line wasn't going to be as good. They lost Kerryon Johnson. Yeah. He's obviously an important player. Make a note of that. Yeah. Running backs aren't as easy to replace as you might think. Yeah. Georgia fans know this. LSU is who I thought they were. And you know what? If I'm not mistaken, didn't they have one of their players get in trouble this weekend? And, look, LSU's got to control LSU. They've done a good job controlling themselves on the field as far as not turning the ball over. They're very good at not beating themselves. But I thought LSU would be a tough game just because it's Death Valley. It'll likely be under the lights. Both teams will be amped up. But I still think that's a game Georgia will win by 10 points.
Yeah, Georgia boy Middleton saying he's surprised about the stat that you're citing, especially after Tyler Clark and Walker, were such beasts last year and playing well this year. And I do believe both Tyler Clark and DeAndre Walker are playing well this year. That it just goes to show it takes more than that. I noticed in the last game that Natrez Patrick, they moved him over to defensive end some. And, at first Georgia has a package where they move the Mike linebacker and switch him out to a defensive end to sort of have create some
pass rush.
Blocking or pass rush, yeah. But in this particular case, he was in there with 2 other linebackers, with Tay Crowder and Monty Rice or Juwan Taylor on the field. So that was my first sign that, hey, they're trying to get something going here, and it's not going so well. This is not really shocking when you look at the grand scheme of things about who Georgia lost.
Well, you lost 4 or 5 out of your starting front 7. And it's and Kirby said early on it's been by committee. And they're still, as you mentioned, Chip, they're still experimenting, still trying to do some different things, working some young guys in there. Yeah. And one of the side effects of the young guys working in there was an exchange on the field between Cox and DeAndre Walker. Cox had blown apparently had not closed out a run lane properly in the previous series. And George had been gashed for 6 or 7 yards, I think. And then it happened again. Now, they had just forced a punt, but it had happened 3 times. And so DeAndre Walker was trying to correct Cox on this and got personal and in his grill, and Cox kind of shoved him off him. And that created some talk. And that was when Kirby said, hey, it's love. And then there was a video that came out yesterday. It's in the story I did yesterday with Jonathan Ledbetter basically explaining all this that happened. And Kirby saying in the locker room afterward, hey, something happened. We had an older guy correct a younger guy. We need that. That's a part of the growth. And what it is it's players holding one another accountable. And, really, Chip, it doesn't matter what the organization is, whether you're talking a football or a Fortune 500 company, you're going to be at your best when people hold one another accountable and there's a constant communication and a standard that everyone insists is upheld. I think it's a great sign that Georgia players are that intense that they're uptight about a 6 and a 7 yard run.
Yeah,
that bothers them. These guys have high standards and high goals for one another, and they go out there every game with a number in mind of how many yards they're going to allow. and DeAndre Walker saying, look, young 5-star, you got to do your assignment. If you don't do your assignment, this doesn't work, and we're not at our best if everyone's not playing their roles. And so what you're seeing there is leadership, and that's why you're hearing Kirby Smart saying, no, this is good. This is good that conversation took place. Even if there was a shove here and a shove there, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's an intense game, and things happen fast. And as Jonathan Ledbetter said, Chip, later on in the locker room, they're going to hug each other and say, hey, man, this is why I'm telling you this. I love you. I want you to be the best. So it's not a sign of infighting or bad chemistry. It's a sign of just how wired up and the high standards that Georgia has, and leadership coming to the forefront of older players holding younger players accountable.
That's the good sign. The bad sign is, if I'm not mistaken, and now I didn't quantify this, but I just recall Middle Tennessee State getting some good yardage on first down a lot.
Yeah.
Which, this is such a critical down, because if you get a lot of yardage on first down, it creates all kinds of opportunities for the offense. Now, Georgia was good enough to shut down Middle Tennessee State on those second and third and mediums or shorts. I don't know that that'll necessarily be the case against Missouri, so they certainly got to get that tightened up.
And you know what? Kirby mentioned that.
Yeah.
As much as we talk about Drew Lock, I mean, this is a team that's averaging 200 yards per game on the ground.
Yeah.
And as Chip was saying, first down is everything. Because, look, if you can gouge 4, 5, 6 yards on first down and it's second and 4, your defense is at a huge disadvantage. Versus if you stop them and it's second and 10, okay, about an 85% chance they're going to throw now.
Yeah.
But you put a team in second and 5, are they going to run? Are they going to throw? What's your personnel package look like? So really, it all starts by stopping the run. That's where a great defensive effort starts.
He talked about that, the personnel, because the thinking is, well, you got this spread team, and so you got a lot of dime packages, and you got these cornerbacks playing star, and so you just drop everybody and create a shell and don't let them behind you. They really the vertical threat is what separates Missouri from some of these other spread option teams they play. But as soon as you do that, then they put those big backs in there and they start gashing you for 5 and 8 yards. I do think we'll see that to some degree. In other words, Georgia was victimized by these guys deep twice, 63-yard touchdowns twice to the same receiver last year. And J.R. Reed was talking about this a little bit. You just can't let these guys behind you. So I do think you'll try to get Georgia to play them in front of you. And I think part of this strategy, and Kirby, I asked him about his strategy yesterday. He didn't like that too much, but I do think Georgia is equipped to possibly outscore them, and certainly can outpower them with their own power game, which, I still believe is the best defense for a great offense like this, is keeping them on the sideline. They can't hurt you. They're going to be tough in Columbia, even if the game's at noon or night. And I think Georgia's going to have to put up some big points. Now, they're averaging 45 a game, so I certainly think they're capable of that. And what the big question is, do you do that, through the run game, which is, to me, again, we touched on this a little while ago, is a little bit suspect. Georgia's run game. Georgia's had some big runs. Their biggest runs have come on jet sweeps. Elijah Holyfield gets a 66-yard run. He can't take it to the house. Maybe he could have if he kept running. That was his excuse. His dad thinks he could have pushed through and did that. But, you just can't take those home runs for granted that you had last year. We haven't really seen those out of the A-gap run game but one time, and you couldn't get it to the house on that one. So
against Middle Tennessee,
you're going to have much quicker athletes, Missouri. And then meanwhile, what I was alluding to with Kirby, Purdue had 585 yards or something against passing, So, Georgia's, last time I checked, pretty good at throwing the ball as well. So you beat them at their own game. I don't know. There's a lot of different ways to skin a cat, as they say, or to peel an orange, or whatever you want to call it. Maybe that's a little bit more appropriate. But I do think there are some issues, particularly when Andrew Thomas is sidelined with an ankle injury. Love Cade Mays, love his story. But there's a difference when it comes to footwork, and you could see it. You couldn't really see it that much second line. I think it helped him coming in against a tired defense, kind of thrown in there in the fire. Might have even helped him some. Gets a holding penalty. Cade does right away against Middle Tennessee State, and jumped off sides one time. But it's really the footwork and ability to hold a block and sustain it into the second level that helps Georgia with Andrew Thomas. Whether he'll be back this week or whether he'll be back to the level he was before, even if he is back, is a big question going into this game.
Yeah. So Chip said a lot there, but the bottom line
that was a long diatribe. I'm
really
sorry about that. Yeah.
I think you might have outdone me.
We put a clock. Well, yours was long before.
Mine was long before that. But
we're trying to even the minutes out overall of this thing.
I'm trying to keep up with it.
Yeah.
So, but I think what I'm taking out of what Chip's saying is a concern that I have. And, look, here's the thing. Look, we know this is a team that they can fall out of bed and win 10 games on talent. And they're really, really good. I mean, this is a great team. I want to qualify it because every time I put constructive or critical analysis out there, people get offended and get angry and start calling names.
Yeah, they love their team.
Well, and I understand it. I think it's a great team. I think they've got championship upside. So when I'm pointing things out like the defensive front is a red flag for championship team, not red flag for team that's going to win East. Georgia's going to win East. Make your reservations in Atlanta. They're going to play in the SEC championship game, okay?
We better go ahead and make our reservations.
That's a good point. Have you talked to BJ about it? We probably ought to. Okay, go ahead. But I'm talking about to win it all, to beat Alabama. I don't know if the defensive. Let's just cut to the chase. If you're going to be good enough to beat Alabama, I think you need to be better in your front seven, and you better be able to generate a pass rush. Because guess what? Tua, even though he ain't Drew Lock, he's pretty darn good. Now, flip side, what you were getting at and getting back to the point.
Yeah.
I got questions about Georgia's run game. You know what? It's, people like say, oh, they just plug more guys in behind Chubb and Michelle. No, they haven't. That's not Chubb and Michelle back there. Georgia's run game is not as good. We've got questions about Swift's durability, whether Kirby says he's healthy or not. I don't know why you take your bell cow out after 2 series and 4 carries. This is a game where you think he'd at least play a half. Otherwise, why even play Jake?
Also, he talked about how bad he wanted to get a 100-yard game during the week, so it seemed like he was fairly motivated to.
And you know what? And and this is the really hard thing for me to say. I feel bad saying this because I really like Elijah Holyfield. I look at this guy. Your dad is a former heavyweight champion of the world. You break off a 66-yard run, and he tells you should have scored. Can you imagine what it was like growing up with that as your dad, trying to live up to that last thing? So I want to tell you, this guy's worked hard. He's likable. He's a fan favorite. He's a media favorite. He's a coaching favorite. But I don't think he's an NFL running back, Chip. And I don't think he's going to break tackles against Auburn and LSU like he is Austin Peay and MTSU. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's good enough to carry a championship team. Now, he may not have to. If Swift comes back healthy and Elijah plays his role and he's a short yardage back or whatever, but when you get caught from behind against MTSU on a 66-yard run, that's not good. Okay, you're breaking tackles against the bad teams. You ain't gonna break those tackles against Alabama at the second level. And the guy has worked incredibly hard. So it's not that I don't like him, and I still think he's pretty good. He could probably start for half the teams in the SEC.
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
But he ain't Chubb and he ain't Michelle, and that's the only point I'm trying to make. Is that last year Georgia had championship caliber running backs. And they have yet to prove that this season, Chip.
Well, and that's a big question for sure. And it was a question coming into the season. And the Swift thing is a little bit of mystery. If it is, what Kirby would have us believe that it is, it's simply a coach's decision. I actually framed the question like that after the game. Was that a coach's decision or was it an injury? And really didn't.
And then you tried a different tactic this week. You kind of beat around the bush. And Kirby made it, instead of just answering the question, Kirby goes, we're 100% tailback, just like we were Saturday, even though that wasn't part of the question.
Yeah.
Kirby was letting us know what we were trying to get at.
Here's something that's kind of interesting because the intel that I was getting post-spring and over the summer was that Zamir White was the best back they had overall.
Maybe he was.
Maybe that's what we're looking at. Maybe DeAndre's a better number 2 back. Now, guys, don't get us wrong. Here's the thing. Georgia moved up to number 2 in the AP poll this week. You're number 2 in the country. Now you've got to start looking at flaws. We know who your competition is. They just beat a team on the road 62-7.
Georgia's a great football team. Listen, I'm not trying to sit here and say they're not. We're into that critical analysis. What are the little things? Because Kirby even says
because they don't have a crap run game. That's not what we're saying.
But it's not an elite run game.
Elite running.
Not as good as last year, I don't think, Chip.
Yeah, right now, I mean I think that's an easy conclusion to make. And I can also make the conclusion I think Georgia's passing game is better than it was last year. So that doesn't, you're averaging 45 points a game now. Neither one of these teams. Look, we're still in that mode. Okay, I'm sorry. We're going into the 4th game of the season. We're not even a quarter way at this moment. You still don't know a lot of it. I mean, we think we know what we know about Auburn, but they didn't get it done this past weekend. We think we know what we about Georgia. Kentucky certainly looks good right now. We thought we knew about LSU.
What do we know about Alabama?
I mean, Alabama
Ole Miss gave
really...
up 40-some points to Texas Tech, so
yeah,
I'm not necessarily
they're not
sold
having a championship defense against them either.
I'm not sold Alabama's as good as they were last year.
I actually really love this part of the year because this is when you're getting your questions answered. This is a huge question answering game for me going to Columbia. I tell you what, you talk about getting lit up on social media. Our Cover 4 series that we do with Jeff Sentell last week. You're supposed to boil it down to one sentence. And my reason for last week was what under radar game or Georgia fans not paying attention do you think is going to be very difficult? And I picked Missouri. And then you got to give a one sentence answer. And it was probably too flippant of an answer, granted. But I mean, we did these things in the preseason. So I said, crappy trip to a crappy stadium. My point is, it's a long way to get out there. I actually like the town of Columbia, Missouri, and I like the campus of the University of Missouri.
We're going to rather there's going to be signs up for towers.
They're
no tower power.
Hung in effigy all over the place. And I mean, that's the way it was. It's kind of quieted down this week a little bit.
That's all right.
Though now I'm going to get it back out there, right? But my point is, this is even being a noon game. I mean, I think that favors Georgia a little bit more because it's not a night game for Missouri. Anytime you look at night, you could just cite great night performances by teams.
Yeah.
I think it helps. It's early in the day, Georgia, but still, Missouri's going to play better at home than they do on the road. And Georgia's probably not going to play as well on the road as they do at home. We'll see.
I don't know.
That's
the way they
test.
answered the bell at Columbia, I was pretty impressed with what Georgia did at South Carolina.
Well, in the third quarter, they struggled for a minute.
Well, here's the thing. And day games are better for Georgia in heat, and I think the forecast is down to 71, unfortunately. If Kirby could set the thermometer in the stadium, he'd put it at 95.
Yeah.
Because this is the best conditioned football team I've ever been around. I mean, Georgia.
You've mentioned that a few times.
I have been impressed from day one with this team's conditioning, how hard these guys work. They've got a championship mindset. You can bet on I've covered teams. I covered a team at Tennessee in '99 that went to Arkansas, fell asleep, and lost a noon game at Arkansas.
Yeah.
Kind of one of those sleepy road games far away.
Yeah.
And a noon kickoff. But listen, that's not going to happen to Georgia. These guys are dialed in. Kirby's got their mind right. We talked to him about the focus. You see the intensity. And that was a test for them. And Kirby brought that up about owning the standard.
Yeah.
Look, it's in Middle Tennessee, but he still wants them to play with a championship level. And in the first half, Chip, they did. And Georgia has owned the standard, and that's what makes this team so special to me. And that's why I think they're going to be ultimately, I think that they're going to beat all the teams they need to beat in the East and play in the SEC championship game.
Yeah, keep it in mind that this game is actually at 11 a.m. local time out there. So Ramon Toribio brings out Griff. I don't think you're as good as you were last year either. How do you like that?
Well,
he's just playing with you. Ramon's on here all the time. And it's his theory that Kirby's just saving Swift for bigger games, and he could be. I mean, maybe he wanted to just get more work for Elijah and Brian Harry.
Why don't you start Fields then?
Yeah.
Why don't you pull Fromm after two series and get Fields more work?
Well, more important position. I'm taking the Kirby Smart. Defer.
I don't know. The Swift thing is we'll find out Saturday. We'll see what DeAndre Swift does Saturday.
Let's get into the Fields thing a little bit. Wally Roberts is talking about this will be a game where Fields will have to show that he has to run because our running backs aren't not where they should be. I don't know that we'll see any different operation of Justin Fields than we saw at South Carolina. I think that's the parallel.
Game to game.
Yeah, it's game to game. If Jake's getting it done and they get a lead, you'll get him in. If Georgia's struggling on offense, I don't think you'll see him. That's what a lot of people are saying. But
early in the season,
yeah. I mean, it's a road game for a young guy. Maybe so, though. Kirby was complimentary about the progress he's seen. I don't know what else he would say. Quite frankly, here's another factor that I would definitely give in Georgia's favor right now. Their special teams has been out of this world, and that's a huge factor on the road. Turnovers are a big factor on the road. Special teams are a big factor on the road. Can you get a big play in the kicking game? I think Rodrigo Blankenship has proven that he's good from pretty much everywhere.
I had a thought on that, though.
What?
as much as George is scoring, at some point maybe you want to have somebody else kick off so he doesn't strain himself.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's kicking off. I mean, you saw the Rams kicker left Zerline out with a groin. That's a lot of use when you're scoring, when you're kicking off 8 or 10 times a game. I mean, you ever kicked? I think
23 kickoffs he has right now.
All in the end zone.
All touchbacks.
You just wonder. I mean,
one through.
Does that wear on you a little bit?
Will we see Justin Fields this week is the big question. Austin Hicksenberg asked me, Chip, why did you ask Kirby what his game plan was for the Mizzou game? That was a silly question. No, it wasn't a silly question. I didn't ask him what his game plan was. That was the way he answered it.
Yeah,
I said, I'm not trying to get in your game plan, but right. I'm saying, do you believe that your run game is a better defense than
it was a philosophical question?
Yeah, it was a philosophical question, and it's okay. I mean, look, guys, Kirby can chew on me every week if he wants. That's fine. It's not going to change my opinion of Kirby as a coach.
I think it's fun. Let me say this. I think it's fun. I mean,
it's just I don't have a
Kirby
laughing too.
Kirby's a competitive guy, and the thing I like about Kirby is that he answers questions and he volleys with his media. It wasn't a personal attack. When you see Saban go off, I mean, sometimes he's just mean to people. Mm-hmm. We've seen him just be mean and try and embarrass people. Kirby Smart's not like that.
Yeah,
that's playful. I mean, he knows who Chip. You covered his career, for goodness sakes, when he was a player. So that's just Kirby volleying. There's nothing personal. I think Kirby's got a great relationship with the media. I enjoy covering him because he does answer questions, but he'll get a little playful. He'll you mentioned, I'm not trying to get you to divulge your game. Well, he jumped you right there.
Yeah.
Had you not said that, he probably wouldn't have said anything about that. But that's just Kirby.
That's the look you get most of the time.
That's just Kirby being Kirby. And like I said, I enjoy that. Yeah. I enjoy a coach that, that brings it, that is a little feisty. He'll get around to answering your questions, and sometimes you got to listen between the lines to what Kirby says, because he's not going to lie to you, but he may not tell you every little detail. And that's just being smart as a coach, right?
The reason I'm looking down so much, I'm looking here at the questions. You guys hit your questions. We're going to have to wrap it up here in a minute. We've got practice to go cover. Ken Blankenship. Now, this is Rodrigo Blankenship's brother.
Okay.
He lives out in Arizona. He's great. Rodrigo's father is also named Ken.
Oh,
This is Ken Jr. Ken is terrific, and he's on here all the time. And it really is such a terrific story going all the way back.
Austin agrees Kirby loves Chip.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So the people in Missouri might not like him, but Kirby likes him.
Yeah, I like, and there is a lot I like about Kirby. I think he's doing a great job. I was the one writing at the outset of the regime change, because you saw this at Tennessee with Philip Fulmer. I was like, hey, there is no guarantee that the next guy's going to come in and give you 10 a year. I understand why everybody's frustrated for not getting to the championship
with Mark Richt.
And Mark Richt,
absolutely.
And he started out 8-5 in his first season, and in that 8-5, hey, stay with me here, people. You remember there were a couple of blown leads in there. That shouldn't have been an 8-5 season. We know now that was a transition year, and certainly
look at this one here. Right. I like this. The Swift thing is none of your business.
We are building depth for your information. What's Kirby's? Robert Barnes, I'm thinking you don't have any idea what it is to be in the press. This is a state university, and he can
stop asking questions.
We're never going to stop asking.
No, the next press conference we're Kirby, welcome. Hey man, does anybody got any questions? No, it's none of our business.
No.
You do what you do, and we're going to sit here and let's just talk about how great the last game was.
No, because we're going to tell us how good Missouri is.
Wait a minute, is that our business?
Yeah, no,
that's none of your business how good Missouri is.
Yeah.
We'll find out Saturday.
Hey, we're here to provide information for you guys. It's not for our own edification. We're trying to tell you who the team is they're about to play, what Georgia's looking like they're going in. I mean, here's the reality. Last week, he says Andrew Thomas is questionable. I could have told you. You could have said he's not going to play against Middle Tennessee State.
None of your business.
Yeah,
none of your business.
Is Terry Godwin hurt? Is he not? Is DeAndre Swift hurt? Is he not? I'm gonna ask.
Well, they let us in practice. So when you and I go to practice today, Chip, we're gonna look out there to see if Andrew Thomas is dressed. We're gonna look out there to see if DeAndre Swift looks like he's 100%. We're gonna go out there and see if Terry Godwin's still got a wrap on his leg, and we're going to report that. You know
we'll
what?
file a report on DawgNation.com as quick as we can get it
And
up.
Kirby knows we're going to report it because he's the one that opens up the practice.
Yeah.
If Kirby didn't want us to report it, very simple. He'd close practice. And you know what?
Yeah.
Sometimes he has.
Yeah.
Sometimes he has. But that's part of the deal. Kirby understands better than anyone. He's a former Bulldog himself. It's a great fan base. It's a passionate fan base. It's one of the most positive fan bases I've ever been associated with. But part of the deal is people have interest in the team, and they want to know what's going on as much as they can without damaging the team. Obviously, they don't want, the reporters to secretly tape or secretly film practice and put it out, and nobody on the Georgia beat does that. But we do ask the coach, and it's up to the coach to decide to what extent of information he puts out. It's our job to ask the questions, and it's his job to answer the questions in the best interest of the university while still being truthful.
Here's a funny comment. Ernie Felt says, since Fulmer is now helping coach at UT, will Vince Dooley start up?
No, don't even get me in that one. I'm sure I'll hear from plenty of Tennessee people next week about that.
Yeah. It's Ken says you need some Xanax. You're a little too fired up. Hey, that's the Griff brings it every day like this.
This is what it's about.
This is where he is.
Love the job.
Give us a few more questions because we're gonna have to wrap it up. What do we got going on? So we got a Tuesday practice this afternoon. It'll be the big physical Tuesday.
Kirby
practice.
will talk afterward.
Kirby will talking to Kirby, so we'll have stories up afterward. We'll have practice report. You got any big plans this week? Any other blowout features you're gonna write?
Well, we got the thing at Marlowe's. Thursday night at the tavern, so I'll be appearing there with Brandon Adams, so that's pretty exciting.
And this will be the first time you and I are essentially traveling together.
Yeah,
so we've gone separate everywhere we've been.
Yeah,
this time you've been out there to Columbia a couple of times.
Unfortunately,
right?
Yeah. I said, my big joke was when I took the job covering Georgia, I said, there's just one thing, I got to go cover at Missouri 2 years in a row. I should get extra pay for this. It is not a nice stadium.
Sweet to him, y'all.
And it is what it is. I mean, here's the thing: in the SEC, the SEC, there's a certain standard, and in most of these places, at least with Vanderbilt, it's an older, but at least you're national, right? But Missouri, it's like, look, you've been in the league 6, 7, 8 years. Where's your money going? Make your stadium nice. You can't do post game press conferences in tent with water dripping on your head.
Yeah,
I mean, just have, not every place is Sanford Stadium. I get it. Sanford Stadium is beautiful. It's probably one of the top 5 stadiums in the country I've ever been to. Baton Rouge is going to be a fabulous venue for the Georgia fans that travel there. Y'all have been to Neyland Stadium. Some people love it. Some people hate it.
That's a DawgNation Invasion Baton Rouge trip.
Great trip.
So we'll have a couple of buses.
The Swamp is great, even though, unfortunately, Georgia fans never get to go there because it's Jacksonville thing. But there's a lot of cool venues. But Missouri is just a step. It looks like a Conference USA place.
Yeah.
It's just not. It doesn't. Even Mississippi and Mississippi State have great venues.
Yeah.
Arkansas has a great venue.
It's very quaint. They have done
South Carolina, I think, is a nice venue.
It's a tough venue.
But Missouri,
tough venue.
That's a step down.
So let's cut to the chase here. Y'all give us your score predictions. Brent Tucker is asking us for a score prediction. We'll go ahead and make a prediction. It's early in the week. Yeah, because it's early.
Is that their business?
Reserve we'll reserve the right to change it toward the end of the week. But I don't know. I mean, I think Georgia wins the game, and I don't know. I wonder what the over and under is on. Have you looked at that?
I haven't looked at it.
It's got to be high, I would think. So I think there's over 50 points scored in this game between the two teams.
Yeah.
And I think Georgia gets in the 30s and possibly in the 40s. I think they get in the 40s again.
I'm gonna say 45-17.
45-17. Okay. I'm gonna give Missouri a few more points. Yeah. I'm gonna say 42-31.
I think they're gonna turn him over. I think they're gonna make Drew Lock wish he went pro.
Drew Lock hadn't had great games besides those couple of lines.
Even 3 interceptions.
Even last year, 253 yards, but those came on 263-yard completions to their fantastic wide receivers. So
Emmanuel Hall.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say 45-17, and I think they're gonna get 3 picks. I really like DeAndre Baker and Tyson Campbell back there, and then the safeties J.R. Reed and Richard LeCounte are playing outstanding. And I think
you like what you've seen from Tyson so far. I'm a little bit. I mean, I don't think. Yeah. I think eventually there's no question he'll be there, but I sure do have seen him chasing.
I just think when Kirby stands up there and says, "We don't have any secrets; it's all on film," that's when inside I'm going, Yeah. They got surprise coming from Mr. Locke. Yeah. They're going to be bringing some pressures from some different places. and I think they're going to make them uncomfortable. I do think Missouri's going to strike deep. I think it's going to be like the South Carolina game. It'll be a game for a half. But, Kirby's going to go in that locker room at halftime and, dial it up. They're going to turn up a notch.
Let's get these in the public. Matt Turner says 56-17 Georgia. Brian Kephart says 44-24. John Anthony says 42-20. Notice all these are in the 60s. Ernie Felt says 44-21. Chad Thomas Black, 41-24 Dogs. Chuck Pearson likes James Cook in the Wild Dog. Gary McConnell, 45-14 Georgia. Jack Queen, 52-21. Georgia boy Middleton is pointing out Emmanuel Hall's nursing a hamstring injury. But if you notice, he was nursing that all the game against Purdue, and he came in late and actually helped them on their game-winning drive. 45-17, Fake Fam Goon says, and so on and so on. Emmanuel Jackson, UGA, high 40s-17. He's not going to be specific. Wally Roberts, 45-30. Josh Lopez, the first one to pick Georgia, not reaching 40
Nobody's
points,
picking Missouri. Nobody's going to pick Missouri.
Nobody's picking Missouri. So, Griff, anything else you want to add?
I'm anxious to get out to practice. I'm anxious to see how Swift looks. I want to see. You brought up Andrew Thomas. I think that's a key injury. Will he be back? And I'm anxious to watch this Georgia team. I mean, I've really enjoyed the season. I really like interviewing these guys. I like the focus. I like the head coach. It's a great program to be around. It's a really exciting time.
You could be covering Tennessee right now.
Well, I'm sure it's probably pretty exciting there, too. They've got Florida coming to town.
Yeah.
I mean, their season's on the line there.
That's going to be an interesting game to watch.
Oh, it's going to be. And we'll be able to watch it with this early kickoff. We'll be able to see.
We are our travel plans normally would be out of St. Louis, but we're staying in Jefferson City because we didn't know when this game was going to get set, and it ends up getting set at 11 o'clock.
I thought it was going to be a night game.
Yeah, I thought for sure. It has been just about every time we've been over there. Well, anyway, we got lots coming up for you on DawgNation. We got to get out of here and head over to the Butts-Mehre Football Complex. For Griff, I'm Chip. You can see the Chip and Griff show every Tuesday at lunchtime, and all the other shows on the DawgNation platforms. You know where to find them.
The Marlowe's event's going to be at Brookhaven Marlowe's, by the way.
Brookhaven Marlowe's, Thursday night for the Marlowe's event. So for Mike Griffith, I'm Chip Towers. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next week.